So we had to make them understand the big picture of what the job description the running back is asking them to do. And again, they're doing a great job of trying to get that figured out.
Do you have comps for Fat and Nick? I mean, in your comparisons in your long career?
I'm very careful of doing that. They're different in their own right. I mean, they really are. They're two unique running backs with two different skill sets. I can sit there and pull out, some of their attributes with some guys I've coached in the past, but they're really just Nick and Kaytron. They're really different in their approach. They're different how they see things. They're different on contact, and they got some instincts that are really, really good that I don't want to touch. You know what I mean? I just want to enhance them. So I won't compare them to anything, but I will tell you this: they are definitely two elite backs. I'm having a great time coaching.
Coach, Nick said last week that he wants to work on kind of some of that creativity and that third level of defense. Is that just what you were talking about, studying film, or what goes into that?
Talking about, I just think that we can eliminate some hits on these guys when they have a little bit more awareness of where free hitters are coming from. And I think that's something that Nick has been playing the game and has had a lot of production, but a lot of his instincts are taking over with a lack of awareness of where those things are taking place. And so I think what we're going to see this year, hopefully, is a guy who understands the game, a guy who's understanding defense a lot better, and a young man that's going to go out there with a lot more anticipation along with the reaction that he has. So, that's what we're trying to do, is get both of those guys anticipating plays a little bit better.
What's it like when you come in, there's two guys like Nick and Kaytron who have all that production and have that, right? And then you've got these young guys behind them, and you got the portal. And what's it like managing a room like that, coming in the way that you when you did, and with the room where it is?
Well, it could be a challenge, right? We're talking about college football players, and they want theirs. They want, they want to have their own personal success. But the one thing that's unique about Nick and Kaytron is that they understand the role that they play, and it's a team role, and they understand that the impact that they can have on a young group just through their actions and how they prepare on the football field. So I've challenged them to be, that next coach on the field, and to bring these young guys up along with them, to give them the experience and teach those guys some of the things that they've already been through. They should have the cheat sheet given to them by Nick and Kaytron. You know what I mean? And so they've done a great job of that. They're taking ownership of that room. They're holding these young guys accountable, and these young guys are going to get better from that.
I was going to say, how have you seen these young guys kind of grow or respond to that challenge?
Well, they're going to listen to Nick and Kaytron for sure. There's no doubt about that. But the response has been phenomenal. Some of what they need to improve on is in that weight room. Some of what they need to improve on is still in the meeting room setting. But as far as their effort and attitude every single day, that's been on point, right? So we're just going to take it day by day, and Nick and Kaytron both have a role in their development as well, and they know that, and they've taken on those roles really well.
You've been really successful as a running back coach everywhere with a lot of people, big-time places. But now that you're back as a position coach after being at the east end of the state, how are you different coaching that position?
You know what? I see the big picture a little bit more. Big picture in terms of what Coach Franklin is expecting, the standards that he sets in place, and being able to bridge that gap from head coach to my unit is very critical, and it's helping to accelerate their growth in that respect, of understanding the game and the big picture, and understanding how the business of the game is working out. So I bring that to the table. I don't think I could have brought that to the table before being a head football coach, and it's making me a better coach that way. And these guys will benefit from that for sure.
What is Nick's potential in the passing game?
I mean, he's got great hands. He's got great instincts. He can read coverage. I think the sky's the limit for Nick in the pass game. He does a phenomenal job of getting open. He understands when it's man and time to keep the thing on the move. He understands when it's zone and it's time to sit in the zone. So just having that awareness alone is going to make him a valuable threat out of the backfield catching the ball. So I think both of those guys, with that respect, in saying that, are very elite in that respect. They really are. Now we need to clean up some route technique, some things. I think they'll start seeing some man coverage on these guys, and some things that we still need to work on, and from a technique and a fundamental standpoint. But I think the sky's the limit for these guys, and that's the game nowadays. It's not running back just getting the football, from the quarterback. It is now they have to be versatile football players, and they understand that.
How much time did you spend looking at them earlier in the career? Like, did you research them as friends?
Well, obviously, I actually recruited Kaytron out of IMG when I was at Texas. You know, I knew about Nick. Nick was Penn State all the way, you know, and I knew that, you know, but I studied their film, and they were very accelerated, you know, coming out of high school, and the transition that they made into Penn State, having that early success wasn't a surprise to me. I mean, those guys are very, very skilled, very, very talented. The thing that I love about them is the mindset. Like, I didn't know that piece of it, right? I mean, I saw what I saw on film, but then now I have an opportunity to really get a good feel for their mindset and how they approach the game. They're serious about it. You know what I mean? They love the game. They understand how to play the position, the physicality of the position, and that piece alone made it real exciting for me to get here.
We see you during practice, very vocal during all these drills. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I think I've always been a pretty vocal coach. You know, I played the position. You know what I mean? So that's the one thing that I do have on these guys. They can sit there and tell me, hey, it wasn't there. And I'm sitting there looking at it like, guys, I played the position. It was there. You know, you just got to hit it up in there. So it's conversations like that we have fun with. But you can't coach this position quiet, that's for sure. And you know, they got to play this thing at a certain level from a mindset, a physicality standpoint. And I try to get that across to them every single chance I get. So, yeah.
Did you have a certain coach that you maybe had in your playing days that kind of you think rubbed off you with your coaching type style?
I had some really good coaches, you know, Ken O'Keefe and Joe Philbin. Those two guys at Allegheny College told me I was a coach before I knew I was a coach. And they were very vocal, you know, but they also taught me how to teach. You know, and they told me that if I miss an opportunity to get a lesson across, it's not their fault, it's my fault. So I try not to leave too many stones unturned in that respect. So I have to give that credit to, you know, Ken O'Keefe and Joe Philbin.
You had a national title at Allegheny.
I did.
And you had 2 with Urban.
That's right.
So you know what it looks like.
That's right.
Does this look like that?
It looks like that. It feels like that, you know. And it starts with a team buying into each other, right? It starts with a team that is player-led. And that's the thing that I'm starting to see here at Penn State is I know for one thing, they are a family. They really enjoy each other. You know, that's half the battle right there, right? And with that comes them holding each other accountable to the standard that we have here at Penn State. And to me, that is the championship caliber football team. We have the talent. It's not a talent issue, you know, but when players take over and hold the standard, that's when you start winning championships. And I think we're definitely trending in that direction.
With the talent and the potential that is in your running back room, would you say that maybe 4 or 5 running backs could rotate, you know, fairly consistently? I know that Singleton and Allar are going to carry the bulk of it, but could 5 running backs really see playing time?
What I do know is that there needs to be a 3 and a 4 developed for the season. You know, that has to happen. You know, are we ready to say that that's the case right now? Not quite this early, but we definitely have some guys that are trending in that direction, you know, and that keeps the group competitive. You know what I mean? That sharpens each other's tools that way. And we got to make sure that we keep that level of standard in that position to the Penn State standard that's been that way for years here at that position, right? So we're getting there. You know, I think some guys still have a ways to go. I'm glad it's only spring, right? We still got fall coming and the off season, and we're going to need every single day to take advantage of that opportunity when it presents itself.
Tyke Hayes looks college ready anyway. Early enrollee. What's impressed you most about him?
He's a tough nut. You know, there is no fear in that young man, and he's very intentional. He studies the game to the point where he gets confused sometimes. Things start to run over for him because he's trying to study it all at once. But he has a very high intentional approach to the game. You know, that's going to have him ready to play early in his career for sure. Yeah.
You knew Trout 20 years ago as a player.
I did.
How does that manifest itself these days? And you're onboarding and then working back and forth?
Yeah, you know, a lot of what Trout and I have is he doesn't have to say a whole lot. I understand where he's coming from. You know, I know how he was raised in the game. You know, I know who coached him very well. Steve Adazio at Florida coached him up very well. And so I see a lot of Steve Adazio in him in his coaching style. You know, so obviously the running backs and the O-line have to be on the same page that way. And as long as Trout and I, you know, have a really good relationship that's standing the test of time, and you know, we've seen each other develop over time. Him as a player and a coach, and him watching me develop as a coach. It's a great engagement that way. So we don't miss a whole lot that way. So it helps.
Two more.
Stan, when we talked to James, and he was asked about the portal and how it's being handled right now, where it starts tomorrow and you guys are going on with spring. A lot of the conversations with players, for him, he said, it's just no surprises, right?
Yeah.
Those conversations, are you guys as assistant coaches a part of those conversations with those players, or is that between player and James?
No, I think it's the whole program. But obviously, yes, the positional coach has to have a heartbeat in his room of what's going on, right? And so, the one thing I love about Coach Franklin is that he's very, blunt and upfront about conversations like that. We're not trying to tiptoe around those conversations. This is college football, and it's a business that way in some respects. So if the players are engaged in this climate that we're in, then we have to have business type conversations with these young men. 8 years ago that wasn't necessarily the case, but to sit here and try to tiptoe around that conversation is not fair for the program. It's not fair for the players as well. So yeah, we're all involved in that.
Along those lines, what is it like being in a program where James has created that sort of transparency so that it can be no surprises?
For me personally, it's exactly what I needed. I've been a part of some programs where that's not the case, right? And you're always looking to see what's behind door number 2, and that's not fun. That's not a fun deal when you have to go to work and you're not quite sure what's coming at you sideways, right? So as long as it's direct, whether you like it or not, you're hearing what you need to hear. And I think anybody can benefit and grow from that type of conversation. So.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.